Your phone is screwing up your mental well-being, but not just because you're spending way too much time on it, which frankly you absolutely are. In fact, it's because you think you're not spending enough time on it that it becomes so hard to get yourself away from these devices. Allow me to explain. Now, in order to fully understand why we are so attached to our phones, we first have to understand the concept of dopamine addiction. So dopamine is essentially the motivation chemical within our bodies. Basically, what dopamine does is that whenever we do a specific action that aids in our survival, our dopamine levels rise so we know to do that action again. Like say we were in the caveman days and we just hunted a boar. We took that boar home, cut it up, and eat it. And because of how good that boar tastes, our dopamine level rises. So we know to do it again because we feel much better with ourselves. Now the problem is what these phone companies and social media companies have done is that they've taken this system that was created to aid in our survival and used it to turn us into slaves. Because think about the typical experience when you get on your phone. You turn on the phone, go on to social media, instant dopamine reward. Because you just got shown either something funny, something interesting, or something super sus. And you viewing that causes your dopamine levels to jump to levels they naturally really should not be. And so, in order to keep that dopamine super high, you keep on going. You keep scrolling, you keep watching, you keep in that dopamine level higher and higher and higher. But then once you finish up, your dopamine crashes. And it doesn't drop to the baseline you had beforehand. Instead, it drops lower. Because typically our dopamine levels are like this in nature. There's natural highs and natural lows. But when you suddenly have a massive high, in order to balance out, the dopamine has to drop even lower in order to compensate. And so when we have these ridiculous lows, that's when we start to feel anxious about having our phones. Because without our little devices to satisfy our dopamine addiction, we feel much worse about ourselves. We feel depressed and anxious and just waiting to get back to what we want. And thankfully, since the Lord is a brilliant designer, He's designed our dopamine receptors in a way where if we get too much dopamine over a given time, then the dopamine receptors start to dull themselves into the oncoming dopamine. But the problem with that is, normal everyday experience just doesn't cut it anymore. That's like going for a walk outside, reading a book, playing a board game, just doesn't hit that same dopamine highs that we've been looking for. And so we just get bored and try and go back to our phones again. That's a pretty miserable way to live, so we're gonna have to undo it. And here's how you can pull that off. So in order to take care of this dopamine addiction once and for all, I hate to say it, but you're gonna have to cut down on how much you use your phone big time. And you can start by going into the settings of your phone and going to time limits and set a time limit for every distracting app you have. Be it Instagram, be it YouTube, be it TikTok, any kind of mobile game, put a limit on it and stick with it. Because if we can reduce the amount of time our brains are exposed to this unnatural dopamine, then over time we can lower the need we have for it. Also, while you're still in the settings, go to the accessibility menu and put your phone onto grayscale. This will turn the colors of your phone to black and white, thus lowering the amount of dopamine you'll be receiving from your phone. But the most important part is not to just simply cut down on the bad stuff, but to add in good. Because unless you replace this super high dopamine activity with a more wholesome activity, you're just going to hop from one high dopamine activity to a different one. And you're just going to be in the same boat you were in previously. Pick up a hobby, go outside, meet with friends, speak with the Lord. Live life. And over time, you'll find yourself in moments where you can just leave your phone somewhere else and just completely forget about it and live your life that day to the fullest. And that is a glorious time indeed. Well, thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next one.